Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So it's been a little bit since I've done like a deck report involving like locals or major events with the Vanquish Soul deck or with any deck in general. I kind of want to give a little brief update. One of the reasons I took a little bit is because I did have a case tourney yesterday. It was a team tournament and I kind of wanted to keep the list on wrap because I knew that going to that event, I was going to make some changes to the list periodically. Another thing to take note of is that we did have a ban list revealed this week. It was revealed on us during Friday, and the list takes into effect on the 25th, which is next Monday, not tomorrow, the next one. So a few things that I kind of wanted to do is like one, make sure that the list was like to my liking, and two, make sure that I had a really good discussion in the lace of the groundwork in terms of not only how you should be playing this deck, but how you should be prepared for like next format. Because even though the changes to the ban list were very minimalistic, the environment around it is going to change to some extent, and it's good to know like how will your deck be fared against or more prepared for the future. And that's something else I was experimenting with. You will notice that in this list, there are no cards that will be affected by the last list. But yeah, so I'll talk about the decks I faced during the past week. I went to locals on Tuesday. It was Tower Games. It was 4 rounds of Swiss. I finished second place. I only lost one. And yesterday was a 3v3 tourney, also in Tower Games. I only lost one match, but our entire team lost 2 matches. So we didn't get to make it to top cut, unfortunately. That's nothing to say about my team because I love my 2 teammates. They were amazing players. The one game where I should have secured the win, I didn't. And the one time they needed to secure the win, well, they didn't. And it's just one of those things that happen. I will talk about all the decks that I faced as of late while playing this deck. That way you have a good general idea and understanding of how good this deck goes into multiple matchups. So far, I faced against 2 Purelies, 1 Unchained, 1 Rescue Ace, 1 Subterror, 1 Exo Sister, 1 Branded Tearlaments, Manadium, Kashtira, Labyrinth. My losses so far was to the Cash player that was yesterday the 3-3 tourney, and I lost the final round on the Tower Games tourney to the Branded Tearlament deck. I got second place on that event, and we, as I mentioned earlier, we didn't top on the 3v3. So I'll go through a list. If you want me to do better explanations of the matches and what happens with the games, I can definitely do that. I will be talking about interactions that I've had with some of the decks because the deck building portion of the strategy kind of plays a role into that regard. But yeah, without further ado, let's begin. So I'll show you a list and then I'll talk in depth like I always do. So 3 Razin, 3 Matlov, Panthera, double Borgar, Pluton, Caesar. That's it for the Vanquish. Triple Wakaushi, triple Bike, Helmet, our Gaia Booster, and Big Benkei. That's it for the samurais. Miscellaneous monsters: Ash Blossom, Dimension Shifter, Magnamut, Druid's Worm, Krikara, Mad Flame Kaiju, and the last edition, Double Fenrir and Rice Heart. For spells, triple Stake Your Soul, Your Nose Is Mine, triple Small World, Rhoda, Continue, Dust Devil, Talents. That puts us at 42 in the main. Extra, triple Rock, Nightmares, Baguska, Borbo, Shakanine, Dweller, Dempsey, Zeus, Axel Stardust, Omega, Chaos Angel, and Baron the Floor. Let me quickly take out the side deck. For side, triple draw, double thrust, triple cosmic, D barrier, triple evenly mashed, triple there can be only one. Okay, so explanation time. As you guys already know, at least some who have been watching this channel, at least the people who favor the Vanquish Soul deck, because I've gotten a really good amount of views on every Vanquish Soul video I've done so far. I pretty much took last video I talked about Cesar Salinas list, the one from YCS Brazil, and I spoke about a few things that I did not like about it. So I wanted to go into contrast of things that I did differently from that list, because that's probably the list that people are looking forward to the most, because it's been the one that has done the best result on a competitive setting. So one thing that I'm doing differently is I'm not playing 3 heavy Borgar. I am playing Pluton. And at least that's it as far as the Vanquish portion. So the thing about Pluton is, until Age of Overlord releases on October 19th, I feel this card should be in your main deck. The number one reason is because this build specifically, the Super Heavy Samurai build, is lacking a lot of fire monsters. Meaning that if you want Rasen's pop effect to be effective, you kind of want a fire monster in hand as often as possible. And Pluton being a searchable fire for Rasen, in order for Rasen to do the disrupt effect, does come up. It comes up a lot. Not only that, but it also being a Vanquish name also comes up. Whenever your opponent is trying to push for game, this also comes up. It already happened to me twice. So far, I really feel that if you're playing Vanquish Soul, you're not doing justice by not playing Pluton. I do understand that it's a brick, and I do understand that it could be awkward if you open it instead of like adding it. However, like, it's pretty much an engine requirement if you want to play this deck as optimal as it is, especially in a build like this one. So one thing that I'm doing different, Caesar had the shifter in the side deck, I opted it for the main deck because even though it's a dead card against Kashtira, and I guess I'll speak about the Bestials as well. Even though these cards are not effective against Kashtira, if you look at the rest of the format and you look at the other decks that are performing, those decks actually struggle against these cards. And just having a game one advantage over your opponent because of a card that they did not see coming is very, very significant. Um, Even now more so with the next list, this is going to be even better because now with the absence of a Rise Heart, a lot of people are going to gravitate towards graveyard centric strategies again, which means uh, this deck pretty much will have a bigger advantage out of all the other decks, just because of that merit alone. Um, there is one card that I did consider instead of Dimension Shifter, and that is DD Crow. Um, and I swear I'm not saying that because they're secret, like from the Speed Duel pack, because I always wanted them. Um, so the thing about DD Crow that I really like is that it's a card that you can draw out of as your sixth card or your seventh card, or it's a card that you can use after you use something like Ash Blossom. And even as a board guard draw on your opponent's turn, this card is also effective. And even though Shifter is way more effective, DD Crow can stop your opponent's game plan if they do not see it coming. And even though Shifter does not hurt this deck a lot, there are some key cards that you kind of want as interruptions or like a part of your strategy that do fall into playing in the graveyard. A really good upside about Shifter is that you can use your super heavy samurai engine without worrying that you need to activate spell cards to like resolve them first. So that's one upside that I do have around Shifter. Cesar decided to play Droll in the main instead of Shifter. I feel like as a lingering hand trap, Shifter just makes a lot more sense because it is a dark attribute for revealing for your monsters as well. So for this weekend, I do not regret this choice. However, I think as we're experimenting with the format, I might gravitate towards DD Crow in the main instead of Shifter. It really depends on how the format shapes up because a lot of people are like still figuring out what's going to happen with the format after September 25th. Two other cards are Dogoran and Krikara. Cesar played this in the side deck. I think these are main deck worthy, especially since I'm also playing Small World. So, like I brought up earlier, Razen needs fire monsters to do the pop effect, and this build was lacking a lot of fire monsters. So just having two fire monsters that you can have access to that are good at all breaking boards, but at the same time be utilized for the utility of your Vanquish Soul effects is just a merit that is already given to these cards in order to play them. I don't think there's an incorrect choice whether you main or side this, but I prefer in the main, and so far it has worked out for me. Okay, so I'll talk about Fenrir and Rise Heart. So if you've been following this channel and you've been seeing my past Vanquish Soul lists, you already know that I was not a huge fan of these. However, in this particular build, I think this is correct. This also falls into the category of just needing fire monsters. Not only for Razen, but also for Stake Your Soul. So this also fills the requirement for that. I am not running any rank 7 in the extra deck. Cesar was playing the Dark Armed, the Annihilation Dragon. But however, you can still special summon this and just use it for rank 4s, which is something that does come up. And just Fenrir being a disruption is also nice. I still unsure about how I feel about this card. It's very nice that it did not get hit on the Forbidden Limited list. I was very, very sure that this was going to happen. I thought that this was going to be a thing. And that's one thing that made me reluctant into playing Fenrir. I thought that if I get too comfortable playing Fenrir, I'm going to like struggle not having it after the after the September list rolls around, which is one of the same reasons why I opted for to playing one Magnamut. Cesar was playing only two Magnamuts and and no other Bestials. I think that's 100% incorrect. I think if you're going to play more than one Bestial, you should at least play Druid's Worm. If you don't know the explanation behind this, I did make a video talking about the last YCS and how important this card was. I also made a video about a very unique deck that I was playing, which is the Kaiser Beatdown deck, and you'll see this card in action and just show you how this card performs against Unchained. Moving forward, I might play a second Druid's Worm in the main deck, but so far I don't regret just playing 1-on-1. And as far as Fenrir goes, I will keep testing it out. I am not a huge fan of it. However, since it didn't get hit on the September list, it means we do have another format for it. And I'll probably make a separate video, but I think this is going to be like the most splashable card in the game. And post Age of Overlord, this is just going to be even more insane. But yeah, I already explained these. So with the samurais, Cesar was playing 2 of this. Don't ever play 2 of this. Like, trust me. I know that his reasoning was he didn't want to break on this engine, and it is another Earth monster reveal. However, I think that is incorrect. I think you shouldn't dedicate your main deck into just fixing yourself out of breaking, because worst case scenario, you'll draw both of this, and it won't be a fun time. It did happen to me because I did test out Cesar's list for a little bit to see how it flowed. So another thing Cesar didn't do, he did not play Small World. I think on this particular deck, I think Small World is very, very strong. Not only does it get you to your board breakers, like Krikara and Dogoran, under Shifter, you can actually get to your Samurai engine very efficiently. And it's just another consistency card. When it comes to Vanquish Soul, if you can get to Razin, your game plan is significantly strong. You do have an advantage over other decks, especially since a lot of your monsters have tag out effects, at least a few of them, and a few others have effects and interactions that your opponent will just not be familiar with. I won one game because my opponent was not familiar with how Dust Devil works, which I'm going to explain in a second. But yeah, I feel like in a build like the Samurai one, I think this card is very, very strong. I think it's kind of necessary. Rhoda. It's Rhoda. I really, really like talents. Shout out to Gary. He's going to be pissed because he doesn't he really dislikes it when I win games with one-offs. I beat him one game with Krikara. I beat him one game with talent, and those are 2 one-offs. But the cards I won, I'm playing 1. I'm not playing 0. So it's like you will see this card often or not. This, if you've seen Jake Quincy's Vanquish Soul explanations, then you will understand why this card is in here. I do agree with his philosophy, and at least playing one gives your opponent the mental like exercise of having to play around this, even if you don't have it. Because once they see it at least in one game, they'll have to be prepared for it in another game. Continuing Dust Devil. Another thing I didn't like about Caesar's list, he did not play Dust Devil. I think that this card is very, very strong. One of the selling points of this deck is that you don't have to play books. You have a searchable book card in your deck that is just as effective as Book of Moon or Eclipse, and it doesn't have like the disbenefit of your opponent needing to draw cards or you needing to specifically target a monster. Also, there's a ruling behind this card because some people just don't know about this. If you target your Vanquish Soul with this and they chain Book of Moon, the way this resolves is that the monster gets booked, and then this will resolve because it already targeted it, and it will flip the monster back, and it will book the other your opponent's monster. That happened to me twice, and my opponent just didn't know. They just wasted a book for no reason, and I just kept going. But yeah, that's it for the main. That's 42. I already explained that. So extra. Cesar did not play. He did not play the Zodiacs, and he did not play Cerberus. If you're playing Cesar, like his list specifically, you 100% lose to Baguska, which is right in here. So you want at least an extra deck out for Baguska in your deck. Even though this card is not super common, you should be playing, like, be prepared for it. And Cerberus is just one of the answers for it. Dust Devil being like the other answer. If you notice with my deck, I pretty much have an answer to pretty much everything. Like, I feel like this covers almost everything. Like, against like the summon lock monsters, you have Dust Devil. Against like other monsters that are like Towers monsters, you have Krikara and Dogoran. Against like Baguska specifically, you have the Cerberus. So you pretty much cover a lot of bases with almost everything you have. Another thing about Cesar's list, he mained There Can Be Only One. I decided to cite it because this format, even though some of the better decks are monotype, you're not always going to face the monotype decks, and you just want your game ones to be as consistent as possible with whatever matchup that you're facing. Games 2 and 3, whenever you already know the matchup, you can just put these cards in, and even going first or second, this card is really strong. Let me talk about Evenly Matched. So one of the things that led for me to play this card was what happened on Tuesday. I faced Rescue Ace, and even though Rescue Ace is not the most meta deck, it is a deck that you have to be prepared for, especially because once Age of Overlord releases, you will be seeing that deck a lot more often. And this card is just a blowout against them. I also like this card against Unchained. I know that people like Jesse Cotton brought up that the Unchained matchup can just play around this card. But here's my philosophy. My philosophy is that if they have to play around this card, that means they had to waste resources that they could have used for other interactions that your deck does. And just having them waste half of those resources means that it gives you a lot more breathing room for you to play your strategy and you interact with your opponent on main phase 2. Um, and that's already enough value for evenly matched. The only value you don't get out of evenly matched is if their opponent negates it and they have other interruptions on the board that they're free to use because this evenly didn't even resolve. Another thing about evenly is that if you pair it up with stuff like Cosmic, uh, let's say for example you're playing against Unchained and they do like the Caesar Rage up escape setup. If you Cosmic the escape before the main phase, um, they lose 2 cards to interact with your evenly matched. If they decide to Sharvara chain it just to pop it and just gain another body, that's just more bodies for evenly matched to just get rid of them. Um, Against like the back row matchups like Rescue Ace and Labyrinth, this card's just phenomenal. I cited this against Purely. My Purely opponent had like 3 sets, the Field Spell, the Continue, and the 5 Material Noir. What ended up happening was I evenly his entire board. He only kept the Noir. And then I small world for Dogoran, and yes, Dogoran Kaiju'd over the Noir. Um, and that pretty much won me the game because he didn't activate Noir's draw effect with Sleeping Memory because he knew I played Krikara in the main deck. And that's another really cool thing about this deck is that you can pretty much mind game your opponent or like strategize effectively against your opponent with whatever you're maneuvering with the deck. Also, I am playing. I'm also citing Thrust, so Thrust can get you to the evenly if you need to. I think I know that a lot of people are maining Thrust. As much as powerful as Thrust is, I think Thrust is only strong if you already know that the environment around you is like hand trap heavy. If you're going to an open environment where you don't know every matchup that you're facing, you might just end up facing a deck that just does not interact with hand traps against you, and you're just having that 2 dead cards in your hand. So when I know that I'm going second, or I know that my opponent has hand traps, that's whenever I can side thrust efficiently because I'm getting the most value out of it. Game 1, the only value you get out of thrust is if either A, your opponent interrupts you, or B, if you go second. And those are hyperbolic scenarios. And not saying those scenarios don't happen, but it's not going to happen as often. I cited the barrier as a card for thrust. In hindsight, I think this should have been Daruma Cannon. I did not resolve this once. I never thrusted to set a card. I will say, post Age of Overlord, I will be more inclined into playing this in the main deck because of the existence of a new Vanquish card that you can set with the triple thrust, which I think is very, very beneficial. And the last card is Droll. Cesar main Droll, I opted to cite it. It's pretty much like you can do either or, but I feel like in the format that we're in and against the decks I'm facing, I just rather be safe citing it than just maining it. I did face an Manadium opponent, and I did Shifter Droll, and he had the cross out for the Droll, so the Droll didn't do anything. Something really interesting is against Kashtira, if they know you're on Shifter, they will side out Shifter against you because they don't that will immediately push to their heads that Shifter doesn't do anything against your deck and it's just a dead card that could be another utility card for them. And that's really good for you because it means that if they start with Planet or Prosperity or like another search card, you just roll them and you can just end their turn without having to worry about Shifter being a variance to the equation. I think that's it for explanations. I think I covered mostly everything. Um, like I did not play Saratobi in the extra deck. I don't feel like that card is needed. I just feel like you have already have Phoenix and the Zodiac monsters are something that can be cut. Uh, I did summon them and I did make format Zeus with them a couple of times, and sometimes it does come up, but it's not really super necessary. I think under this format you have to have play Abyss Dweller. There's like no debate. Like Unchained is really, really popular, and now post September 25th, you're going to see more graveyard centric decks. So just having this in your side deck alongside with the shifters in the main or side, and the bestials, and then maybe Crow if you decide to play that, or maybe Bell, will give you a lot of leg room against those graveyard decks. Um, but yeah, that's it for now. Before I end the video, I am going to give a huge shout out. So, I am, as you may have seen from the community tab, or if you have not, I am sponsored. Uh, this is the store that is helping me. It's called EJ Gaming. Please check them out if you do have the chance. Um, I'm gonna show you the QR code in a second. Like, here's the QR code. Um, if you are interested, I will post the link in the description. And if you go to checkout and write British 5, you will get 5% off on all their orders. They have good amount of singles, and they have pre-orders for future sets like Age of Overlord, for example. So if you're interested in investing into those, feel free to check them out. And yeah, you'll be helping and supporting the channel. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this video was very informative, and as always, keep practicing and keep dueling.